Hello and welcome to this special financial preparedness video presentation. I'm your host, Pastor David, and with me is Victor Holman. Victor,
yes,
how's everything going so far?
Very good, Pastor Dave. Surviving this pandemic that we've been going through, and
That's right.
Just had some thoughts about financial preparedness in this kind of unique situation that we're in.
That's right, folks. We can see some shafts of light. We know that eventually this is going to pass. It will come to pass, as Pastor Tony has told us on many occasions. And we just first and foremost, before we get into any of the practical tips that Victor's going to give us, we want to say thank you to all of you who have been continuing to financially give to the mission here at CCNN. We would not be able to continue to teach the good news of Jesus Christ to the lost and to the found without you. So thank you again for being consistent and generous with your giving at this time. We also recognize that this situation has hit us in different places in our financial preparedness. Some of us, we were ready for it. Some of us, we weren't ready for it. And so we want to let you know that there are organizations that we work with and that are around the community that can help you, including Thrive Peninsula, the Salvation Army, and also Link. And we'll give you some more information as we go through these steps later on at the end of the video so that you can connect with those organizations. Once again, this is about financial preparedness, where we want to give you some practical steps on how to continue throughout this quarantine period and how to better prepare for what may come down the way. We don't know what comes next, but we know that there are some practical biblical steps. So, Victor, what is one of the first practical things that people can do to be more financially ready for what may come and to handle what has transpired in their financial portfolio?
Well, Pastor Dave, as Pastor Tony has taught us from day one, we have to seek God first. So the first thing is to pray about our situation, read our Bible, and commit to God's will in our life. And so without that, without Him, we cannot do anything, but with Him, we can do everything. So That's the number one thing.
Absolutely.
And as an example, I would have folks look at 2 Kings 4, 1 through 7. And that's the story about Elisha and the widow's oil. And just as a quick synopsis, there was a woman who was a widow. Mm-hmm. Her husband had passed away. She had some sons. They were going to go into debtor's prison if she didn't take care of her debt. She sought out Elisha, and he gave her some guidance and wisdom about collecting her pots, collecting the oil, and keep pouring the oil until it wasn't anymore. She ran out of pots. And so what we learned from that is that she had her whole family involved, that she began where she was at, and that she did what she could. And so as Pastor Tony has taught us and encouraged us, we are to use what we can, include our whole family, begin where we are, and do what we can.
Absolutely. We have to pray. We have to seek God. We have to keep God number one in our finances. No matter where you are right now, whether you're in the black or the red, we want to seek the Lord first and foremost. What's the second step that they can take in assessing their situation?
Well, Pastor Dave, the second step is to assess your situation. And in that area, what we want to do is review our income, look at all of our sources of income, and also look at all of our areas of expenses. Next is we want to create a minimal budget, and we have an example that people can click on and go to and see what a budget looks like.
Okay.
The next thing is to track any unplanned purchases for 30 days or 4 weeks.
Okay.
And so again, there's an example that people can click on to track that spending, and that's where money kind of leaks out of our pocket and kind of gets away from us. If we can capture those funds, we'll have some money saved right there. The next thing is to create additional funds to pay off our debt. And again, we create a list and example there, number 3, on how we can do that in some very practical ways. And again, Pastor Tony taught us this in a series that he taught in January about stop eating out, cook at home, pack lunch, and make a weekly menu. So we use the food that we have, and we're not out buying food that we don't need, or we are eating out, which is very expensive. Next is to consider reducing or eliminating some service, cable and cell phone, for example. The next thing we can do is ask lenders to postpone or lower our payments or our interest, or even extend our payback time. So that we can look at Visa card, credit cards, we can look at mortgage, and also auto loans, where we can kind of change our payback rate. The next and final area is to consider for a season, for a short time, working overtime or taking on maybe a second job for a season to help get after a specific debt to pay off that debt.
Wow, those are some great practical steps, especially that you can implement right now. We've had to make some tough decisions, and going forward, we want to make some habits, some good, healthy financial habits, and build those so that when we make the tough decisions early on, we can handle the tough situations later on. So while we can assess our situation, what about going forward for the long-term success? How do we ensure long-term financial success in a biblical way and in a righteous way? How do we do that?
Well, the way we do that is one, eliminate debts. And we call that snowballing or ganging up. So we want to start with our smallest debt and work our way up to our largest debt and use those extra funds that we're creating, that about $200 from the overtime or that second job, and also cutting back on other things, use that extra money plus the payment to take care of that smallest debt, get that one wiped out, don't create new debt, and then keep going after each debt and knocking each one down. And again, we have an example number 4 that they can click on the link and see that. Next, we want to increase our savings to about $500 to $1,000. The importance of this is, Pastor Dave, it keeps us from going back to the credit card or back to the lender. And we have our own credit card, so to speak.
Exactly.
And again, if you fall off the wagon, if we slip up, as the Lord tells us, as Pastor Tony's told us, just start over, just pick up where you're at and begin again. The final couple of steps, real quick, Pastor Dave, are after creating that savings account is to commit to regular tithes and offerings to honor the Lord, to honor what God has brought us through.
Well, that's one of the steps that I know a lot of people they're a little iffy about, they may be a little bit concerned about. We want to continue to honor the Lord. We don't want the circumstance to dictate how we honor him with our finances, because he's the one that gives us the strength to earn the 90% that we're allowed to steward. He just asked for the 10. And I know that hits everybody at different places in your life, but it's a test of our faith and our trust in God, who owns it all and who's going to give you the strength to earn more in the future.
Well, and it's the one area where he says, test me in this. And so
see if I will not provide.
That's right. And he will do it. And then again, we know so many people where he's done that. We've tested him, he's provided, and shown himself strong.
Now, he may not always feed you with filet mignon. We're not saying that. You know, honestly, he may feed you with tuna fish and bologna. But David said, I've been old and I've been young and now I'm old, but I've never seen the righteous forsaken nor his seed begging bread.
Amen.
So let's continue to be faithful in that, because he's faithful to us. What else?
The next step is once we have that tithe going, we're honoring the Lord, Pastor Dave, we want to go ahead and pay ourselves now for retirement. If we're at that stage of life where we want to increase that amount going there and planning for the future, because the future is going to come and we want to be ready for it. And so God will continue to place those funds in our hands, increase it as he determines, and have us prepared for the future. And the final step is to teach our children or grandchildren, as the case may be, to not make the same mistakes that we made, and so that they can have a smoother life in that area, honoring the Lord, taking care of their finances, and not be in a tight financial bind, Pastor Dave.
That's a great point, because we want to look up to the Lord when it comes to our finances. We want to look to the left and to the right and see where our spending is, but we also want to look at the next generation and the future. We don't just want to think about us. We want to think about those that'll come after us so that we can bless them. And all of the budget trackers and all the budget helps that Victor has talked about are going to be in our description below this video, so you can click on those, print out the budget tracker and the income and output tracker, so that you'll know what's going out of my house, what's coming into my house, how to snowball and gang up on your debt, so you can knock out debt one debt at a time, starting with the smallest debt, and then going further and further, so you can free yourself and prepare yourself for what may come down the line. We also want to thank you again. Those of you who are continuing to give, we thank you. Because of you, we're able to do things like this. And for those of you that need assistance right now, whether it's food or toiletries, Thrive Peninsula is available to help you. And for those that have and can donate, I've talked to some people that God has blessed them, or you raided the whole supermarket and you have too much. They are taking donations to help those that are in need. You can also check with Salvation Army and with Link. And with that said, I want to thank my guest, Victor Holman, for giving us those practical steps. Again, check the description for those printable trackers so that you can improve your finances. And we thank you for watching.